Hey, it's Drybear. With the 2.0 update in Cyberpunk, a new weapon was added alongside an existing weapon, so a katana and a throwing knife. Both these put together make a nice combination. So today I want to talk about my Blademaster build for Cyberpunk 2077 that focuses on combining blades with throwing weapons to be utterly unstoppable. First, you should come hang out with me on my live stream. I'm live every single day on twitch.tv/Drybear. If you don't come hang out with me and the Twitch community, the next time you go to open your ketchup bottle, when you remove the seal, there's going to be that thin plastic seal underneath that doesn't get removed along with it. Now, the weapons in question are the katana Satori and the knife Nehan. And you get both of these iconic weapons at the exact same time towards the end of Act 1 at the heist in Konpeki Plaza, which means that you can get here if you're just doing main story. You can get both of these weapons at the same time after about an hour or two of just doing the main story on a fresh character. What's great about this is in 2.0, they increased the throwing weapon build potential massively. You can do insane damage output with throwing weapons. And with the Nehan, which has a decent damage per hit, not quite as high as some axes can get to, but one of the highest for knives specifically, has a headshot damage multiplier, a chance to apply bleeding, it does bonus melee damage, and the iconic legendary passive means that when you throw and hit with this weapon, it'll apply bleeding. If the enemy is already affected by bleeding from Satori, this katana, then instead of applying a bleeding on top of the existing bleed, it will apply a new status effect called hemorrhage. Hemorrhage is another dot that gets applied and does damage, but as it does damage, it heals you at the same time as well, which is one of the few things that I love about this build when you're going for melee builds, even blunt or blades, it doesn't matter. I like having that extra heal because you will be taking damage as you go through. Even if you're using a Sendevistan build, having the extra heal is very nice. On top of that, Satori has armor penetration built into it, plus bleeding chance as well. And when you do the unsheath attack, you'll guarantee to inflict bleeding, which means you could very easily activate the bleeding hemorrhage effect from Nehan, and they also feed off of each other. So if you attack first with Satori and then follow up with throwing Nehan, then you'll apply the hemorrhaging as well. And as far as I can tell, this also works on any kind of damage that comes out from these weapons at all, including deflecting projectiles with the blade passives, which you can do by blocking with the katana. If you deflect projectiles and that does damage as well, and they're already bleeding from the Nehan you threw at them, then you're also going to be able to apply that hemorrhaging. The throwing knife will be at the end of the Konpeki Plaza, the heist mission, and the katana will be up on top on the landing pad when all of the events of this moment go down. So just make sure you grab the knife off of the body that's in the room from the story event that happens and go up on top of the roof, take care of the guards, and then also grab the katana. And if you are worried about any iconic weapons that you've missed in the main story of Cyberpunk 2077 and you happen to own the expansion Phantom Liberty, there is a vendor that exists that allows you to catch up on any iconics you forgot to grab that existed in the base game. And he's right here inside of Dogtown. He is the weapon vendor Harold. He looks like this, the guy with no jaw. So if you come down here into the Chem Stadium and come over to him and you talk to him, if there's any iconics that you haven't picked up, they will show up here in his list. Sometimes they don't show up, but for the most part, if you're missing any, they will be here for a pretty high price, but you can get ones that you've missed. All right, let's jump into the build and the perks that you'll need for this build specifically, and then we'll go into gameplay tips and tricks and how to play it properly. Firstly, this is primarily a reflexes and cool style build, since you're going to go into cool and pick up the throwing stats on the right side of the tree, going all the way up to style over substance, and then you'll also go into reflexes and unlock the slaughterhouse, the blades, deflecting, and all of these perks over here. However, the stat distribution for early levels can be a little tricky because there's certain requirements that you need to unlock things. Both body and technical ability can open doors for you and get you secret stashes, extra loot as you're doing missions. You can also get dialogue options with reflexes and cool, so you want to be aware of that progression as you go through it. Now, once you've gotten all available attribute points and you're ready to spend them all, I would recommend getting 20 cool, 20 technical, 20 reflexes, 18 body, and then no points in intelligence. What you could do is remove some of those points, an extra point there, and then get things like the Force Kill Cipher to reduce the hack access points. But we're going to be running a Sendevistan in this build anyways, which means we're not going to be doing any combat quick hacks. So we're going to focus primarily on other abilities that focus on keeping us alive during our melee encounters. Right off the bat, I like going straight to 9 cool so that you can unlock the second tier of this tree. Pick up Scorpion Sting, which means that it will reduce the throwable weapon cooldown time for getting your weapon back. You'll also get poison applied to the target, and then I like rushing straight to Neurotoxin. What this does is if you apply poison to a target by critting or headshotting or hitting a weak point and you apply the poison, it will immediately blind and disable sprinting for 6 seconds. You'll see this on a target that you hit in the head. Their eyes will start flashing white. They'll be blind. They won't be able to see. And this makes early game encounters a lot more reasonable because they won't be able to accurately hit you. And you can also do stealth encounters a lot easier as well. Next, I think you should go into the reflexes tree, get 9 points into it, and then do lead and steel. If you get 2 points into this perk, you'll be able to unlock the ability to block projectiles that come in by using stamina. This makes this a lot more reasonable when you have a lot of enemies coming towards you. You can throw Nahon at them, pull out Satori, and then block with your katana to get deflections back and keep yourself safe if there's a lot of enemies coming from one direction. Then you can very easily pick up bullet deflect, which means that if you have high stamina and you're blocking, aim your reticle at the target and it'll shoot the bullets back at them to deal damage. And again, as far as I can tell, this does trigger hemorrhaging if they're already bleeding from your thrown weapon. Once you have that core gameplay down from reflexes and cool, I recommend going for the very early trees of body and technical. It's going to make you a lot more survivable, especially if you're playing on the very hard difficulty. So under body, I like getting all 5 of these perks down at the bottom. This means that you can regen health in combat. This makes it very easy if you disengage to get some HP back. You also regen health faster while you're sprinting, which you will be a lot with this build. Extra regen for each enemy nearby, extra regen when you get lower HP, and then more mitigation after you heal, which is super useful. Under technical, I love this bottom left side of the tree. This gives you recharge of health items when you neutralize an enemy, recharge for health items, and more healing after you've used for the final charge over healing. It gives you more recharge for health, an extra health charge for your health item, and then also faster use of health items in combat. Again, for a build like this, you will be under pressure a lot because you'll be getting in the enemy's face, throwing daggers, pulling out your blade, and slicing. But when you put all of these survivability aspects together, plus the healing that you get from body, plus the healing that you get from your blades, you'll actually have a good amount of survivability. And even further from that, once you unlock better cyberware, things like having a second heart or even having a biomonitor, these 2 things can make you very tanky on top of all your other self-sustain. Then you'll want to come back to cool and get the rest of the throwing weapon things. These give you a lot of bonus damage and it will keep you safe as well. Juggler is massive, allows you to reset the cooldown on your throwing weapons. You want to kind of come through and get Pounce as well, which gives you finishers from a distance with your throwing weapons, allows you to leap in, get the finish. You can pull out your katana and do some attacks. Make sure you get Style Over Substance. And I actually do like getting Ninjutsu to sprint while crouching, and then even getting Vanishing Act for some stealth actions for crouch, which you'll see in a second. Additionally, Flash and Thunderclap is a great option for using charge attacks to close the distance with your katana. So you can throw the blade, switch to the katana, and then immediately attack and use a charge attack to close the distance. You can even get bonus stamina, attack speed finishers with your blades, and that way both your throwing dagger and your katana have a finishing move that you can use to finish off an enemy and give you a little bit of survivability while you're going through that animation as well. Now I have this full build built out and linked down below in the description and in the comments. So if you're looking for the build links, you can follow along with it. I have that link down below. Now let's go through the gameplay of this because it actually is pretty important to know how your weapons work and how to get the most out of them. You'll be switching primarily between your Nahon and your Satori. I hope I'm saying those right since I've said them so much at this point. But you'll be basically going between throwing your Nahon, switching over to your Satori, and then dashing towards a target and then picking that up. But the core of this you want to know about is how throwing weapons work. If a weapon can be thrown, when you look on the weapon itself, it will have a return time stat, which you can see at the bottom of that tooltip there underneath effective range. It has a return time, which means this weapon can be thrown. So if on PC, you hold right click to aim. So if you hold aim down on console and then you fire, it'll throw the weapon towards the target. And then in the middle of the screen, you can see those red lines going around my reticle. That is your return time before your weapon comes back back to you. And there are ways to make this faster, but even if you don't get the resets that you have inside of the perk tree, you'll just have to wait for that to come back. However, you can collect the weapon. So if you grab it, which means if you go and get close to it and grab it, it'll automatically reset and you can retrieve it. And there are some really cool bonuses in the tree that allow you to get bonuses on damage output from those as well. So for example, Pay It Forward says that after you retrieve a thrown knife or axe, your first melee attack or throw with a throwing weapon grants 200% damage. So triple damage, which is really, really cool. And the dagger will also impale itself in enemies as well. And you also have, because of the juggler trait, that if you get a headshot on a target, you'll be able to instantly reset it when you get that headshot. So if you hit someone in the head with the throwing dagger, it'll instantly reset. It'll come back to you immediately. Or if you get a crit hit, or if you have poison. So if you have those and you hit him in the head, that's the most consistent way, it'll instantly reset. And you can just throw, hit, throw, hit, throw, hit, and do those as well. And honestly, just using the Nahon for small encounters is enough. You'll do ridiculous damage on headshot. Even if they survive the first hit, you'll have the dot on top of them from the bleed, the poison, it'll reset, and you can just keep hitting headshot after headshot. And if any target survives long enough from the first hit, you can pull out your Satori, dash towards them, get some extra bonus damage on that. And once you add in the Sendevistan, you can basically take on an entire army platoon of enemies that are coming towards you, and there's not really much that they can do about it because you're doing so much damage so quickly and healing yourself in the process. The next thing to be aware of is the sheath attack for Satori. This is how you get a free bleed from the weapon. The weapon itself does have a chance to bleed on target, but if you do the sheath attack, it will always afflict bleeding, which means that if you do Satori first and then switch over to the Nahon, then it'll do the hemorrhaging effect and vice versa. So if you already threw the Nahon at them and you dash forward, you can get the sheath attack in order to apply that as well. So one thing you'll notice that when you have this weapon out is if you just kind of chill and you're idle, it'll actually go into the sheath animation naturally. So it'll kind of sheath on your side. And now this is how you know that it's sheath. When you have this blade, when the hilt here is kneeling on the left side of the screen, so you know it's ready to go. All you have to do is attack, and that will be the sheath attack, and then it'll go back to normal motion. However, if you start sprinting, it'll go into this state naturally. So if you don't charge in towards the target, you're just running around, you can actually go straight into the sheath attack to apply that bleed. Sheath, switch out the Nahon, throw, hit them, and you'll get the hemorrhage effect to start healing, and you're ready to go. And you'll want to switch between them often because you will have cyberware available that will give you bonuses if you swap to the throwing weapon and use it immediately. You'll get bonuses to your katana right when you pull it out. And if you're fast enough when you switch to the katana, you can actually get the sheath attack to come out as the animation of you pulling it out happens and you attack specifically in the right moment. It will give you the sheath attack regardless, which means that you have tons of ways to swap between those. The build also lends itself well to stealth because you're already going to have points in cool and reflexes, so you can spec into some really cool stealth options. And keep in mind that throwing weapons aren't traceable. If you hit someone and they see you, they will aggro combat and know that it was you. But if you hit someone and kill them instantly, or if you throw a dagger and hit a camera or do something from that, then you'll very easily avoid detection entirely because they'll hear the knife, but knives in general are silent. You don't know where they came from. You don't know why they're there. Unless you hit an enemy and then they stay in combat and see that you threw it, you're going to be able to just keep moving through stealth and then hitting them again and again. And then again, once you have the Sendevistan active, you can switch between the katana, go back to the blade, use deflect when people get close for extra damage or for AoE damage, going into finishers for immunity, and get the hemorrhage heal effect that will give you plenty of extra health as well. Let's talk about good cyberware that you can use to keep your build alive and also use in synergy with the weapons that you have available to make this build the best that it could possibly be and to explode enemies with your blades. If you're wondering, I have a video on how to get more cyberware capacity so you can have more available cyberware, but the gist of it is either you need to level up, get cyberware shards by doing side quests, unlock perks that give you extra, or look for the separate leveling that you have, the skill progression here. Underneath, specifically engineer, there will be extra cyberware capacity that you can pick up by going through this as well, which does help a little bit, but those are the ways that you add cyberware. But there's some awesome cyberware bonuses in here. Firstly, Sendevistan, we have to talk about this because this is going to be one of the best ones that you can use for your build in general. You can slow time, which allows you to get more bonus. Most of the Sendevistans can give you bonus headshot or crit chance or crit damage, and you can also extend duration with some of the best ones. I love the Militech Apogee Sendevistan. It's the one I use the most because it has the slowest time and bonuses there. but it will take you a little bit before you can get a good one slotted in. You also want to get the axolotl. This one's great because when you kill enemies, you'll reset all cyberware, which allows you to reset the Sandevistan, but I also love running optical camo in this build as well. This allows you to activate it and lower your visibility almost to 0 when enemies are near you, which means that you can very easily activate this. You can pull out your weapon just so you can see it, but you can activate this and go camo. And inside of the expansion, there is a upgrade here for the relic that allows you to break combat, which can be super useful for a build like this to get in and deal damage and be able to scale off that as well. And you can also have it, since you're already inside of the cool tree, to make it so that when you're crouch sprinting, it'll automatically camo for you, which means you can just zoom around. I'm crouching right now, but I'm sprinting as well. And you can just zoom around while in stealth, grab enemies, throw daggers, be completely silent, and enemies won't be able to deal with you at all. The next upgrade is in nervous system. I love getting the stabber cyberware. This just gives you crit chance with blades and throwable weapons. It'll also give you extra crit chance because you're running with reflexes as well. Deep field visual interface gives you crit chance the further the enemy is away from you. So when you're doing those really long dagger throws, it'll crit. And keep in mind that if you don't get a headshot, even if you don't get the headshot, as long as you still crit or hit a weak point, it'll still apply Scorpion Sting, which is very good for the build overall and keeps the momentum moving. So it's nice to be able to have the extra crit from that so that you don't actually end up losing out on the bonus, even if you miss a headshot. Next is the handle wrap for hands. This is when you equip a throwing weapon or a throwable weapon, you'll get crit chance with throwable weapons for 6 seconds. So when I'm just standing here, you can see up in the top left corner next to my camera, if I pull this weapon out, I go to my katana and go back to my throwing weapon, I'll get this buff for 6 seconds, which gives me crit damage. And because we're swapping between our weapons so often, you'll be able to keep this buff up all the time, which is only apply when you have the throwing weapon that goes down there as well. And keep in mind that when you do any animation that takes your weapon away, including mantling, so if I mantle and come up, you can see that the buff refreshes. Come up, mantle again, the buff refreshes. This includes vaults as well. So you'll be able to keep this buff going all the time, which makes this cyberware super, super handy, pun intended. And lastly, the Kuroshi Cockatrice is very expensive and pretty late into the game, but once you do get it, it's super nice. It gives you 10x optical zoom, but also gives you 35% crit chance, which is super nice. Aside from that, the stats you want to find on any of your cyberware is going to be headshot damage multiplier, bonus stealth damage. Remember that when you get a one-shot on a target with your throwing weapon, they won't trigger any combat. So if you can hit them in one hit with the throwing weapon, hit them in the head and blow them away with the bonus stealth damage, you'll very easily just be able to avoid detection entirely, because that one shot will take them away from hitting it. And remember, if you apply Scorpion Sting, you're going to blind them anyway. So as long as you're positioning properly and using your optical camo, you can just sit in the shadows throwing daggers constantly. And if you need to, pull out your katana when things get dicey. And that's the Blademaster build, making full use of the pre-existing Satori, but also the new weapon that was added in 2.0, the Nihon. Both of these are available in the heist, and I hope you found value in the video. If you did, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and I'll see you on my live stream. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.